Right, we're on to the latest position, the corner forwards here, brought to you by 65 Hurls. Go to their website 65hurls.com and check out the latest sticks. No doubt they're being smashed by the dozen at the moment as hurling returns. Michael Verney, we'll move on to the best corner forwards. We've enjoyed going through the other positions so far. One thing that stood out as we were doing a little bit of research before we started this is there is talent in Watford, but it's very hard to identify a corner forward who's been lighting it up in recent times.
Yeah, there's a handful of probably 4 or 5 lads, the likes of Patrick Curran, maybe Colin Dunford, Shane Bennett, who's been on and off, Stephen Bennett, who's been full forward, corner forward, and on and off, Jack Prendergast, and a few others. Desi Hutchison even comes to mind on the panel for in 2020, having played great stuff with Ballygunner in 2019. But you're kind of thinking they're all good players, but a couple of them have been around for 4 or 5 years and not really nailed down a place. And I don't know if there's any real killers. If you look at all the really top counties, they've got corner forwards and full forwards, but we're just talking about corner forwards here, that will really break your heart, that will end up with 1-4 or 1-5, that will really take the game to you. If they're getting any bit of space or any bit of latitude in there, they'll really go to town. Whereas you probably can't say the same about Watford. Maybe it's symptomatic of the system that they were playing for years, where there was always only 2 inside, and part of your role was to work and go across and back, and you maybe scoring wasn't your big thing. But there's lots of talent there, but none of them have really kind of kicked on at inter-county level like we would have expected.
Yeah, without doubt. Like I would have thought Shane Bennett, and obviously he kind of had a couple of good seasons there, stepped away. I think he could have been a guy who could have made a big impact. Colin Dunford, who'd often operate further out the field, he's another one. Desi Hutchinson, I think obviously time is on his side for him to light up the hurling championship at some point, and getting a good run with Ballygunner, and you'd imagine they will at the very least make it to the latter stages of Watford. That will be good for him, because during the league this year he was getting to a stage where he was in and out of the team, and then you wonder how much game time would he get before championship, whereas now you know he's going to get a run of 5-6 games, whatever it's going to be, and I think he could have himself in a good spot by then. But if we were to go to a county then that has fairly undeniable talent at the corner forward position, you can't go much further than Limerick, because Graham Mulcahy, I think, arguably could have been hurler of the year in 2018. Peter Casey is in there. I mean, it's a little bit debatable. We could bring Aaron Gallan into this, Seamus Flanagan, because they all mix and mill around a little bit, but I think we'll probably put them in the full forward slot. But I mean, Graham Mulcahy, and it's funny you had that stat, wasn't it? He didn't have a shot or a point on his weaker side, his right hand side, during that 2018 championship. I think he put it right the following season. But what a player, and the leader actually. Go back to that All Ireland semi final against Kilkenny last year when other lads were floundering. He was the one stepping up.
Yeah, I only watched it recently actually. He was outstanding in that game when everything around him was kind of going to pot really. Mulcahy's a funny one, because Mulcahy, well, he probably would have, but he may not have. He made his breakthrough with Limerick basically when they had no panel. That's when he got his chance under Justin McCarthy, when a lot of lads pulled away and then the whole squad ended up pulling away. And he fairly seized his chance. He's not been a regular maybe the whole way through that decade, but in the last 4 or 5 years, he's really come of age. Very diminutive, but very, very hard to get a handle on. Very, very dangerous. Could pop up anywhere. I suppose he's maybe not your stereotypical corner forward in the sense that like he could be buzzing in around in different places. You could find him out around the middle of the field picking up ball as well. But he's maybe not your stereotypical hanging in around the 21, gonna be real risky kind of scoring 3 or 4. He's maybe a different type of corner forward, but he's unbelievably effective, and he's been one of their best players over the last 3 or 4 years, no doubt about it.
And so is Peter Casey. I think he could light it up for years to come. Always remember in 2017 when Limerick got knocked out of the All-Ireland Championship qualifier against Kilkenny down at Nolan Park. The team, I thought, was fairly misfiring under John Kiley in his first season, but Peter Casey, I think he scored 3 from play that day down in the Lions' Den. Really good. I was watching some of the highlights of Shane Dowling's goal in the All-Ireland final there recently, upon him announcing his retirement, and it was Peter Casey who made the dart and run through to set up the goal. So I just think he's a very, very good player, and they can get even more out of him. But imagine how much more Cork could have done in the past few seasons if Alan Cadigan didn't pick up so many injuries. I think he's right up there at the very top level of elite corner forwards.
100%. I think he'd nearly be at the top. He's definitely top 3 for me. If he'd stayed fit over the last 5 or 6 years and been able to play most of the games that he should have been available for and wasn't due to injury, I think he'd be definitely up there. if you talk to any inter-county defender, cornerback, or even fullbacks, I know James Barry definitely talks about it. He hated matching up against him if Cadigan went into the full forward position at all. So elusive. Like if he gets the ball, you're a goose. Like you are like he's gonna get away from you, and he's just gonna be too tricky. And even in the last year or two in particular, would have been probably renowned as maybe a bit one-sided, a small bit, that he'd go to the left a lot, but not in the last couple of years. He has that ability to go to the right as well, and the fact that people think he's going to go to the left most of the time is working to his favour now, because they almost give him a yard on the right and he's able to take it now. But with ball in hand, he's like a couple of the other lads here, and thinking of maybe Shane O'Donnell and Conor Whelan. When you're talking about the elite, when they get the ball, they're usually either score or they're fouled. It's one or the other, because there's so much danger when the ball comes near them. But yeah, Cadigan's a brilliant player.
Would it be fair to say that of the corner forwards, and we're going to consider him a corner forward for this, that Bubbles O'Dwyer would actually be the tastiest hurler of the lot?
I think so, yeah. I think so. You can put him up against any line in the field, and I think he's probably going to be the tastiest of the lot, in fairness. A couple of things, like Bubbles' flexibility to play in other positions as well is a massive thing for him. I know we're talking about corner forward here, but he could realistically play 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He can play anywhere across those positions on a given day. But yeah, there is, again, he will break you. If he gets ball, he will break you. He could score 4 or 5 before you've blinked. Like, it's that quick. He can obviously put over line balls as well, and has all the touches in around there. Rarely wastes a ball in around the goals. When he gets a ball, he's unbelievably clinical as well. He definitely, funnily enough, I don't think he'd be top 2 or 3 for me, being honest with you. But if you're talking about tastiest, as in silkiest touches and skills, you're literally talking one of the silkiest hurlers that's ever played the game, realistically, aren't you?
You are, but if you're saying not in the elite 2 or 3 here, what other candidates in this bracket has actually delivered in All-Ireland finals the way he has? Because he's fairly smashed Kilkenny for big scores in those in 16 and of course in 19, but back in 2014 didn't he score 6 from play the first day also? So he's actually fairly delivered in All-Ireland finals, more so than pretty much anyone here.
Yeah, apart from Shane O'Donnell, because
one swallow doesn't a summer make, you know. And I mean, you could say the same.
If you're talking about delivering in All-Ireland finals, you can only deliver in an All-Ireland final if you're there. And he scored 3-3 in the only one that he did play. But no, I take your point. When Bubbles, you know as well as me, when Bubbles is on and mentally and physically tuned in, he's nearly unstoppable. But the thing with the Bubbles is as well, he's drawing attention, but Callan is also drawing a lot of attention, and John McGrath is drawing a lot of attention, as Noel McGrath would be as well, or Jason Ford would be. Whereas Shane O'Donnell's probably operating in a maybe a more limited forward line, where he's getting, specific attention. And maybe Conor Whelan would probably be earmarked for specific attention as well. Whereas Bubbles is afforded that bit more latitude, because a lot of the time he's not specifically man-marked by the opposition team's best defender, and he makes hay when he's not.
What do you think of, so I think Bubbles is at his best when the ball is moving as fast as possible, which means August or September in Croke Park, he's going to fairly much put the ball into your eye socket if he wants, fairly much destroy you. Let's say Tipperary get to an All-Ireland final this year and it's in the depths of December. Does that mean that, you project he wouldn't perform quite as well?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit different. The only thing I'd say is big games will still be played in big venues. Like Croke Park will still be, like you saw Croke Park in January for the All-Ireland Club final. Like, it didn't feel like January, do you know what I mean? Because it's Croke Park and the pitch is always going to be perfect. There's not going to be divots, or it's not going to be real heavy or anything like that. But I suppose it's getting to those big games maybe where he could be bogged down a bit, because conditions are bound to be a small bit slower. But at the end of the day, there's no substitute for risk at the end of the day as well. Regardless of what the ground is like, he'll still deliver if he gets ball in hand.
And when you say there's no substitute for risk, Richie Hogan has to go into that conversation as well. It remains to be just seen how his body reacts. I mean, is his back going to have an issue? He'll obviously want to come back and, in his head, I suppose, put things right and turn things around for Kilkenny in 2020. Is he still up there in the elite level? Because I think, and mainly because of injuries, he hasn't quite been able to shoot the lights out as he would have before.
I'd say, to be honest, he's probably slipped out of it just over the last couple of years. Not through any fault of his, just his body is probably just let him down. There have been glimpses. I know he wasn't necessarily corner forward today against Limerick in 2018. He was kind of out more around the centre. He was outstanding that day. Looked like he was going to go well in the All Ireland final last year. Had a pint off Barrett and had a bad wide and was foul, I think, for a free as well before he was sent off. There's been glimpses, but I think with Alan Cadigan, if he takes the pitch fit, you know what you're going to get in a given day. Same with Conor Whelan, same with O'Donnell. Richie Hogan has become more hit and miss, and again, that's probably through no fault of his own, realistically.
Yeah, Adrian Mullen started corner forward. Well, he's certainly in that line last year in the All-Ireland final. We don't know, was he sick or not. I mean, we're always going to be told he wasn't because teams don't want to put out excuses. He's obviously a talent, did his cruciate, so we're not sure when we'll see him again. But Billy Ryan, I think, is a player that Kilkenny are going to come to rely on in years to come, because you can't coach that sort of pace, and he's not a small man either. He's very direct. He's basically like a taller Eddie Brennan. Now, whether he can deliver what Eddie delivered is another thing, but he's clearly got talent.
Yeah, he's got a lovely paw as well. He's quick, but you can also leave it in high. There was a couple of league games there, I think it was last year, where he caught a couple of balls over defenders, and he has that ability to do that as well. They need probably more of those kind of poetry type players maybe that they've been missing over the last couple of years. Colin Fennelly is full forward, and it's more like it's a barreling kind of a thing, and it's, maybe they need more of the lad who's going to be able to take a ball, drop a shoulder and just bang it over the bar or take a goal. So Billy Ryan kind of maybe might fall into that category over the next couple of years. Kilkenny have had a big turnover of lads like that. If you look at the 2016 final, Kevin Kelly got 1-1 or 1-2, started that All-Ireland final, has since been dropped off the Kilkenny panel, and there have been a few more lads like that have been in around there. Like if you look at, I know he's not corner forward, like Mossy Keown, played the league in 2019 and didn't play any championship hardly this year at all. There's been a good few lads.
John Joe Farrell, a few more like that as well. Yeah.
John Joe Farrell, Jerry Aylward was an all-star in 2015 and has got I think after he was sent off against Galway last year, got no game time. Yeah.
Well, Galway, actually, now that you mention him, Conor Whelan is no doubt right up there at the very top, and it's hard to think of him having too many bad games over the year. Even scored a goal in the 2019 All-Ireland final that they lost to Limerick, 2018. I think he's still right up there at the very, very top, because he can win ball any which way you hit it into him, in front of him, directly at him, touch, high ball, doesn't matter. And even, I think, were you at that Galway Tipperary League game earlier on in 2020? And he lit it up. I watched it on telly. Very, very impressed. So I think there's no debate that he's in this conversation. But I think Brian Kincannon can put himself in that bracket too, because I saw a couple of signs during the league, and even in the years beforehand, there's snippets, but he seemed to really step up during the league. I think he's going to be a very dangerous player for Galway.
Yeah, there's definitely been signs. He was very good in that game against Kilkenny in Nolan Park last year, where they broke the big hoodoo, where Kilkenny hadn't been beaten there for a long time. He definitely has potential. He wouldn't be the rangiest player, so it was probably always going to take a bit of time for him to bed in. And you look on the opposite side of that, Whelan is probably, I'd say Whelan could be one of the most robust corner forwards that has ever played the game. Like, when has there been a corner forward who's able to take the abuse that he can physically? Like, he could chip tackles all day, every day. He's like, even when he broke on the scene, he was big. He's even bigger now. Again, he's one of those lads, if he gets the ball, he's impossible to stop. He also has this mad kind of technique. Have you seen how high he hits the ball?
Yeah.
Like, they're skyscrapers, I'm surprised some of them aren't waved wide, just from umpires who maybe are a bit peeved off that they have to look up that high or whatever. But he absolutely bangs them over at an incredible height. Maybe he hasn't been able to grab as many goals in recent years as he would like, but invariably when you think of Conor Whelan, you think of C. Whelan 0-3 or 0-4. That's usually what he ends up at in a game. And
he's going to have probably the best marker on him also, so he's going to be up against it. Jason Flynn is another guy who delivered in that game in Nolan Park last year, and he had a couple of ropey moments, but what I was impressed by is that he kept going and he was able to contribute fairly strongly. In Wexford, there's something we noticed when we were looking at Wexford, is that it's not like they've got bubbles, someone's going to get you a load of scores, or Cadigan that's going to get you lots of scores. It's like Paul Morris can definitely get you 3 or 4 points a game, and Cathal Dunbar, but it's like they're part of the machine, I would imagine, in certain respects, that it's not all about getting them on the end of the move, because Conor McDonald is going to be the one closest to goal. That these guys are probably foraging, working really sort of hard to try and get the ball to the runners coming through. So they probably play a slightly different way at Wexford.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Davy copped a lot of flack in the first 2 years, probably been over Wexford about the sweeper system and all that. Well, I think he can only play with what you have as well. He doesn't have a load of snipers. Like, he doesn't have like three or four sniping corner forwards that are going to kill you. So they're playing a style where they think they want to get Dermot O'Keefe on the ball. They want to get Paddy Foley on the ball. They want to maybe hurt you more from outside. So like Paul Morris doesn't come into the top 5 or 6 when you're talking about, you know, really, really, really elite corner forwards that are going to get 1-2 or 1-3 and cause a massive threat. But invariably he roams out around, comes out around 45 yards out and ends up with a couple of scores and works phenomenally hard and creates openings for other players as well. But I think Wexford, I think what Davy's done is quite smart. He doesn't have a Bubbles, or he doesn't have maybe a John McGrath or these type of players. So he's kind of altered the game plan to suit what he has, and I think it makes sense, the style they play for what they have.
And just looking at a couple of the other counties, Dublin have, I suppose, Eamon Trollier-Dillon is probably the number 1 corner forward for Dublin at the moment. Mark Shuta could get himself up there. Oisin O'Rourke has shown some really good flashes, and particularly against Galway in that Leinster, what ended up being a bit of a knockout game in 2019. Laois, Ross King, of course. I mean, everyone's seen him and heard from him. He's enjoyable to listen to in the last couple of years. And Chris Nolan with Carlow. It actually kind of reminds me, size profile, of Billy Ryan a little bit. Big guy, fast, and plenty of hurling in him. If we were to sort of narrow it down to pick your favourite corner forward, who are you going to go with?
Yeah, we actually haven't talked about him yet properly. Shane O'Donnell will probably be up there for me. It's a straight match between Shane O'Donnell and Conor Whelan for me, and it's a very, very tight match. Probably what separates Shane O'Donnell probably is, again, he's getting. I know him and Whelan are the same actually. They're both getting specialist attention when they play. Teams know that if they can shut down Shane O'Donnell, they have a great chance of beating Clare. He's just so elusive. As I said to you before in previous kind of different podcasts and things that we've done, I think he's probably the most foulable forward in the game. Like, when he gets the ball, he's invariably fouled. I think for someone who like parachuted himself into the public consciousness after scoring 3-3 in their full championship debut, starting in a replay All-Ireland final, I think he's been brilliant over the last 6 or 7 years. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. I think he's taken the game to teams. I think his form or performances rarely drop below a 7. And I think if you had a couple of other files like playing close to him, if you had another really good corner forward the far side and a good full forward and a couple of half forwards that are dangerous, you put Shane O'Donnell into a Tipperary team, imagine he would offer a completely different threat. Like, we just say Bubbles might necessarily take you on every time. He'll take the score every time. Imagine a Shane O'Donnell bringing that threat and, you know, drawing ball for Callan and drawing ball for other lads and putting goals on plates for other lads and getting goals himself. It's funny, I didn't think he was the most, he might not be the most stylish looking at times, but by God does he get the job done. It's Shane O'Donnell narrowly for me. Probably Shane O'Donnell, Conor Whelan, Graham Mulcahy, I'd say.
Yeah, there probably not too many people argue with that. Maybe Alan Cadigan in there, and just Bubbles by virtue of how much he keeps, or how much he has delivered in the big games over the years. Actually, what came to mind as you were talking about Shane O'Donnell was, remember that goal he scored in the replay against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final in Thurles, where he just slalomed in among a load of defenders, ended up dropping the ball and whipping it then on the sort of half volley, if you want to call it that. For me, it's probably similar enough in a way, but I would go Alan Cadigan, Graham Mulcahy, Conor Whelan, one of those three. And Mulcahy, because he's such a leader and has done for a number of years, and I would have had him possibly as hurler of the year in 2018. Alan Cadigan, yeah, you get the ball into him and he's seriously gonna damage you. But Conor Whelan, whether you're on the front foot or the back foot, I think he's going to destroy you, and you can lump that ball into him and he'll win it any which way. So I think by virtue of the fact that you can just depend on him no matter what the circumstances are, it's just going to be Conor Whelan for me.
Yeah, the thing about Alan Cadigan and this Alan Cadigan is no fault of his own. It's just that Mulcahy has a serious body of work over a decade, as Whedon has a serious body of work since he debuted, 6 or 7 years ago, and O'Donnell has as well. Cadigan has had that stop start, so I just think he falls out of that. But the other 2 or 3 lads there, you could throw a blanket over them really. I'd gladly take any of them on my team and not want to go near any of them if I was on the opposition team.
Absolutely right. So that's it. That's the corner forward. If you think we've got it wrong, let us know on social media. And don't forget, we're brought to you by 65hurls.com. So get your hurleys there.